going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to do something a little bit different, something I haven't done before, and I'm actually going to be breaking down one of the shoots that I did for a friend. It was just a free gig. We were screwing around, and it was something I've never done before, ever, and that's a car motorcycle shoot. So I had to do some pretty interesting things to get some of these shots because we were shooting out of a car, and we don't have, one of those rigs that would be hooked up onto the back of a car and I'd be inside controlling the camera. All I really had was a Sony a7 III and a cage on it with the top handle, and that's sort of how I had to go about this shoot. We also had a gimbal, but I didn't use the gimbal for when we were traveling for some of these shots, but I'll show you in a second. But yeah, it was quite an interesting shoot. I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm going to show you guys how I did it. All right, so we are in DaVinci Resolve. This is the project timeline for this. So before the shoot, I wanted to sort of have an idea of somewhat of a story. A lot of times I end up just doing these like montage, B-roll type things without really thinking of a story. So I sort of wanted to change that and do something new. The story is sort of there. It's not the greatest. There's no talking parts. It's really just a man who finds his therapy or his pleasure through motorcycle riding. And I know a lot of motorcycle riders out there would agree that that's their sort of way of escaping reality. I sort of wanted to leverage that into the video and sort of give off a cool montage effect. So when we look in here, we can see the opening shot is with Caden right here sitting on the ground with his helmet next to him. I thought this was a really cool shot. We got the sun shining in from the right corner, and then he's just sort of sitting there with his helmet next to him. And then if we play the video, I actually have him grabbing the helmet, getting up, and starting to walk over to his motorcycle, almost like he was just like contemplating something. So I had him start walking over. We were using the gimbal for this shot. So you see he was walking to his motorcycle, places it down, and he's getting ready to go on his bike. I thought that would have been a cool shot with looking at him in the mirror. Something different. I was thinking about looking up at him, which I believe I actually did do that shot in a second. Yeah, right there. And I just thought this would be a really cool way to break up the story and make it look a little more interesting, and have some different angles and aspects of him putting all his gear on and getting ready to go ride. So this entire first part of the shoot was just him getting ready to go ride and put all his gear on. So I wanted to make sure I got every sort of shot that I could get to make it look interesting, of him putting gear on. So obviously we have this shot with the mirror, and then we have a shot of him putting his gloves on. This was shot on a gimbal as well, and then him putting his helmet on. Also, believe it or not, this is probably one of the first shoots I did with like Foley, like true Foley, where the sounds were all made by me, or we figured out a way to record it during the actual shoot, but most of them were made afterwards in post-production. And I believe, if you can hear this little sound right here is literally a helmet being pulled out of a bag, and it sounds just like him putting it on his helmet. So I was pretty happy with how it turned out. It's very subtle, but it adds a lot to the film. And then I also added this sound effect for him pulling his visor down. Sounds pretty good. So after we shot all of the, story part of him putting all his gear on and getting ready to go ride, I wanted to transition into sort of a song and then him riding as well. And the song I chose was Night Rider by Masked Wolf. Most of this was also shot on a gimbal. I hadn't turned the keys, turning the bike on. Got the exhaust, clean carbon fiber exhaust. It looks great. I like this shot, although this is probably a little too overexposed for my liking, but that sun flare is kind of cool in my opinion. We actually, part of the Foley, I had my other friend who was helping us, Jaden. I gave him my audio recorder, and as he was turning it on, I was like, hey man, just put it about right here and just record. And it sounds pretty good. So I used that for the engine part, and then obviously he revs it a couple times, which I used that as well. And then also for the key part, I literally just found a key online of him turning it. And then he turns the bike on. Again, trying to sort of make as many different shots out of one section as possible to keep it interesting and not super boring. And then we have him right off in the distance, following him on the gimbal. Of course, you can see my shadow because of the sun, but what are you gonna do about that? So now we get into the fun part, which is the writing. And I had an idea of how I was gonna shoot this. I debated about using the gimbal for this, but I'm really glad I didn't use the gimbal because it was kind of sketchy, I'm not gonna lie. So as you can see, he drives off. Nice little transition. So this entire section, I am shooting out of the passenger door car, one hand on the top handle and one hand on the camera, keeping it as steady as I could because we didn't use the gimbal. So we got a couple shots of him just driving by, and then a couple flybys as well, just turning the camera, which as you can see, I definitely struggled a little bit to get it there, but I think it added to the effect as well. So I thought it looked pretty good. And another crazy thing is that this audio right here is not from the actual shoot. I literally went on YouTube and tried to find a sound of closest to his bike that sounded good enough without a bunch of wind in it. And I came across this video, and it sounds pretty accurate to where he is and how fast he's going. I mean, if you pay attention like precisely, you can sort of tell, but if you're just watching it and I didn't tell you it, you probably wouldn't even know. So now for the color aspect of this video, I shot everything in S-Log3, I think, and it comes out like this. It's a pretty flat profile, and then after the grade, it looks something like this. Pretty warm, colorful, decent dynamic range. The thing I recently learned though is S-Log3 can produce a decent amount of noise, which you can kind of see in the background of this video. There's a decent amount of noise, but there wasn't really any way to go back. So I just added a noise reduction to it, to some of them. I know this one was pretty bad. This was the before, and this is the after. This one I had to do it heavily. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of noise on this. I probably bumped the ISO up way too high, but we were also shooting like at night pretty much. And that's what it looks like after. Using the noise reduction in DaVinci Resolve is great. It's a fantastic noise reducer, but it softens up the image quite a bit, and you can tell how much sharper the image is around like his body and even that railing over there. And then once you add that noise reduction, it's cleaner, but it definitely looks way softer than I probably would have wanted. It almost looks like an artistic style, but I wasn't really aiming for it, but I had to deal with it. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this production breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know if you want to see more of these. I'm thinking about doing them more in the future. So anyways, I will see you guys in the next one.